Welcome to the Strong for Life podcast. This week I'm really excited to share my client Matt's story. Matt was going through a very frustrating phase of getting repeatedly injured. Even though he had the motivation to show up and train, he kept on getting hurt. And now after a year and a half, he is in a really good place. He's feeling strong, lean and pain-free. If you are in a position where you're getting repeated injuries and you're just sick of trying to figure it out yourself, I am currently enrolling for my signature online program, the Strong for Life Blueprint. If you want to learn more about it, please fill out the intake form and I'll be in contact with you as soon as possible. Welcome to the Strong for Life podcast. I'm your host, Conor O'Shea, and today I'm joined by my client, Matt. So Matt and myself have been working together for about a year and a half, maybe a little bit longer, and I'm super excited to share Matt's story with you all today. So Matt, welcome to the show, and why don't we start with a bit about yourself, maybe where you're based, how old you are, and what your day-to-day stuff is like.
Cool. It's good to be here. Thanks for having me. My name is Matt. I'm based in Melbourne, Preston, specifically, so North Sider. So I guess I work in IT, so I'm constantly sitting down at a desk, just typing away. My day-to-day program now regarding working with Connor, it's just training in the mornings and then getting the steps in at night. So it's 4 days a week, so combined of upper body days and lower body days. So just a bit more details on the upper body days. We're working between straight arm and bent arm strength. And then on the fifth day, if I'm feeling up for it, I'll go for a boulder. And it's feeling great so far to be injury free. It's really good.
Yeah, mate. How old are you, Matt?
I'm 30.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah,
so
30.
Yeah, so let's talk about where you were, like, a year and a half, 2 years ago. And just for people listening, like, Matt doesn't have an issue with motivation. He's super motivated, driven guy. But maybe paint a picture about where you were 2 years, a year and a half ago.
Yeah, certainly. So about 2 years ago, I was training pretty heavy, like was trying to be the jack of all trades, trying to do my own research on how to work out efficiently to do with my climbing and in combination of my hiking also, my trail running, and how can I combine all these together and just, become a better athlete. But I was just broken. Elbows, shoulders, and ankles, knees, and whatever I did is just wasn't enough. I was in some pretty bad pain, but you kind of get to a point where you're trying all these programs out and you feel like you're the problem, and what you need to do is to just train harder and to kind of use the pain which you're trying to embrace as fuel to train harder. And then I guess in that it's self-deprecating because you're training as hard as you can and then you're not training properly. You're not strengthening the weaknesses in the body or the links, and it's just downward spiral.
Yeah, mate. And I think when you look up, David Goggins or people like this, and it's really motivating, but then the advice is to just push through, and it can be easy then to think like the only thing that you need to focus on is just pushing harder, and then you'll come out the other end and you'll be better off, and then of course you're just progressively getting worse, and as you said, getting more frustrated. So before, maybe when we were chatting initially, or when you kind of saw that I was doing a coaching intake, what sort of things are going on in your head? You had tried a lot of different things to this point. So maybe share what you might have been skeptical about, maybe a bit worried about before joining the program.
Yeah, I guess some of the main things that I'd been skeptical about was just I had spoken to a lot of professionals, physios, my therapists. I was seeing a Chinese medicine doctor monthly. And then I guess when the gym that I was training at, there was a few coaches there and they're like, oh, try this out, try this out. And sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. And then, came and spoke to Connor and I'm like, oh, here we go, another professional, another guru.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I guess my main skepticism just came from trying a lot of things in the past and having no success.
Yeah, for sure. And like the more things you try, that don't work, the more like you said, the more you kind of think, well, it's just me, like this is just the way it is. And
I need to push harder.
yeah, yeah. I'm lost. I'm gonna put on YouTube now and everyone's telling me to push through. So I'm just gonna do that again.
Exactly.
Uh okay, so you joined the program and still, you're skeptical, obviously, because of history.
Hmm.
Do you want to maybe talk about any breakthrough moment when you were like, okay, this is different, like I'm feeling different, this is a different kind of outcome to what I'm used to? Can you kind of, was there any specific moment, or do you want to talk about any
Yeah.
feeling throughout the kind of early phases of the program?
Some of the good things that happened when I joined the program was the accountability, and our like monthly chats and weekly chats was just, hey, how you doing? How's everything going? I hope you're not pushing too hard. I hope you're not trying to injure yourself again. And that was really good for me because I was just like, maybe I'll just do one pull up, maybe I'll just do a skin the cat. And then we were chatting, and you're like, that's all it takes. That's all it takes to get injured. But
Mm,
what the good thing for me was that the program you'd gave me was complete rehab. There was nothing strenuous about it at all, and it wasn't like very muscularly hard, but it was a lot to do with tendons. And then when I realized, when I picked up like a 1.5 kilo dumbbell and I was doing some of the rehab and I couldn't do it, and it was like, not painful, but it was just like, oh wow, this is like a little bit uncomfortable. And
mhm.
then constantly doing that, the exercises with the dowels for the elbows and then the shoulders. And then, a few months in, I'm like, oh well, my elbows are feeling pretty good. Like I'm feeling like nice. I don't get that pain in the middle of the night that I used to get on my elbow or my shoulders either. When I
What
was
was
seeing
that?
my
You'd wake up, would it be, or what?
Yeah, yeah, some evenings I'd wake up with like my elbows just burning, just super inflamed. And
Mhm,
then I have to wake up and then try to like, put a ball in there, like floss it, try to get some blood in there. And
mhm,
it sometimes it worked, sometimes I'll just have to sleep with pain.
mhm,
And then after that, I saw we were chatting actually, and I'm like, hey, do you mind if I do like a really light bouldering session? And you're like, yeah, it's just regulation, just go by feel. And then I went bouldering and zero pain, zero pain. But I was always really careful to not push it too hard. I was like, no, got to take it easy, just do, the basic climbs,
mhm.
basic warm-ups. Don't try to do any like hectic dynos or any type of fingerboarding.
Yeah. Do you want to
Yeah.
explain that? Like maybe first of all, kind of your interpretation of auto regulation and kind of how that was different to what you were doing in the past.
Yeah, so I guess what I was doing in the past was just not regulating at all. It's just like train hard one day, train hard the next day, train hard the third day, not getting much sleep in, not getting the walking in, not eating properly either, because I wasn't really thinking about how my work life stress was affecting my training. I thought they
Mhm,
were just two separate entities.
mhm,
And then really having that awareness to be like, okay, well, I trained pretty hard on Monday, maybe I can train hard on Tuesday, but Wednesday I need to just relax, I need to go for a walk, I need to be more mindful about my stress, I need to maybe do some meditation or just get some fresh air,
mhm.
time away from the screen before going to bed, at least 2 hours away from the screen, so I'm getting a proper night's sleep. And that over time really helped.
Yeah, man. That's such a good
Yeah,
point. Yeah,
yeah,
especially about the separate entities. I like the way you phrase that as well. It's
yeah,
easy to kind of think that, yeah, your work or your thinking tasks are separate to your training. Like it's all
yeah,
linked. And like, yeah, what
yeah.
you're doing at the weekend is going to affect everything as well.
Yeah, that was another big thing for me too. Weekends. Yeah,
Do you want to
yeah,
go talk about that?
yeah.
Yeah.
So on the weekends, again, it was just another thing of maybe my lifestyle beforehand was always kind of burning the candle at both ends. So I was like doing a lot of drinking on the weekend, like a
Mm-hmm.
lot of alcohol, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
binge eating as well. But during the weeks, I thought, oh, if I'm okay during the weekdays, then the weekend should be fine to splurge. But then after having a chat with you, it really brought some light to the matter. And when I changed up my weekend habits, like everything else during the weekday was a lot better, feeling not so groggy, as well as it was kind of like having this battle between weight loss, specifically with fat, and being like, well, I'm training so hard here, but how come I'm not losing anything? It's because the weekend just blew that all out of proportion. And you usually there's like a notion with some of the fitness fads. It's just like weekends you can just do anything you want and just train during the weekday. But it's just for me, it wasn't true at all. I had to bring my awareness to my habits of what I was doing on the weekend. And that really changed a lot of things for me.
Yeah, because you were doing everything right as well. And I think during the week you were doing everything right. And I think that's a really
Yeah.
frustrating part because it's like, Jesus, I'm training, you're doing four. This is like your injury was no problem at this point, and you're
Yeah.
doing four, maybe five really seriously intense sessions, in comparison to most people. And then you were kind of like, I'm not getting results. Like this is
Yeah.
doesn't make sense, and
Yeah. It's so
be very
frustrating.
demotivating as well because you are doing everything right, but then those 2 days, as you said, you can go from a calorie deficit into a calorie surplus very easily by just having a big boozy weekend with lots of food on top of that. Like, so
Yeah.
what was the change that you made around the weekends, just so people know?
Yep. So we kind of broke it down. It's like if we have our month, um, we've got 4 weeks. So you drink, you can do what you like for 2 weeks. And
Mm-hmm.
then the other 2 weeks, you just try to avoid it as much as you can. But then, we also spoke about you just really have to go for the vibe at the moment. If Danielle, my partner, if we want to go get a dinner on my weekend where I'm not drinking or eating, and it's a special day for us, obviously I'm going to do it. Just you have to think about the return and investment, because like that's good for our relationship and our like happiness and longevity. And it's not good if I was just like a Nazi and be like, nah, I can't do that this week, I'm not doing anything. You really have to
Yeah.
play it by ear, but still it's good to have that discipline.
Yeah, I'm really glad you said that as well. Like, because that's a big, like, black and white rules is a big issue as well with especially nutrition, and especially, like if you're yourself and your partner, it's your anniversary, and like
Yeah,
you're
exactly.
like, sorry, this is my off week, can't go
Yeah,
out. So I'm just gonna have broccoli, and I'm going to bed at 6 o'clock tonight because it's part of
yeah.
my schedule. Like,
She'd
yeah.
be like, what?
Yeah, so I'm glad it's just
Funny.
like making it realistic as well for your life. And the what we like to use in the fitness industry is that, like, value based decision making. So
Yeah.
that's the cool thing. You basically just explained what that is. Like, you have, kind of rules. So to, have to, instead of doing 4 weekends a month and just binging, you're kind of going out 2 weekends a month now. But of course, if there's something special on with your partner, with friends, with family, you're okay to make that decision and not feel like you've cheated or failed in any way, which I think is so powerful. And yeah, I'm really glad that you touched on that. Okay.
Yeah, no problem.
So let's talk about your results so far. So yeah, like
Yep.
things have been pretty good, yeah.
Yeah, man, really good. So I guess one of the big things for me is where I noticed I was doing some martial arts down in Brunswick, and then some of the moving, some of the punching, my elbows used to always get inflamed and my shoulders, and now that's not an issue. Also, when I'm bouldering as well, when I do like a big dyno and then I catch it, and then it's usually my shoulder or my elbows just like blow up and it's just like inflamed, it's like on fire, and that just it's not a thing anymore. There was one little flare up, and then I like contacted you. I'm like, hey man, I think like I injured myself, and you're like,
Yeah.
cool, let's just dial it back. It's cool. And then a week later, it was all gone. So it was awesome. It was awesome. And my ankles too. Like I had some pretty bad ankles cankles. And I didn't bring it towards your attention initially because I thought I was managing it. And then as soon as I brought it to your attention, you're like, cool, man, I've got just a thing for you. And then you put me onto the ATG stuff, and that was like life changing. That stuff
Yeah,
is
yeah,
amazing,
yeah, yeah.
amazing,
Ben Patrick
amazing.
is a beast.
Yeah,
So yeah, maybe talk there about, because you'd be big into hiking,
yeah.
outdoors, loving all that. So because it was interesting when you didn't tell me how frequently you'd be rolling your ankles until you fixed it, and then you're like, this used to actually happen this often.
All the
So
time, man, all
you
the
want to
time.
give people numbers like how often you'd be rolling your ankles?
I reckon like during a week basis, like I roll it like about 3 times, but when I roll it, I'm like literally like on the floor, like fuck. I can't move for about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And I'm just sitting there, and then I get up slowly, and then it's okay. And it's the worst when it used to happen on the trail. Like we'll be with my hiking team, and we're making some good tracks, and then it'll happen, and then the whole team will have to stop until I'm like composed, and then we just lost 10 minutes. It's just like, oh no, letting the team down. But yeah, now it's just not a thing. Like I recently went on a hike, Mount Bogong, and I rolled the same ankle twice in like one day, and it was fine. Yeah, it
Gotcha.
was fine. It was fine.
So
I
it's
was
just
like,
more
cool.
more resilient, and even if you go over
Yes.
it, like it doesn't knock you out, you're able to
Yeah.
recover because you have the strength
Yeah.
there now. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, mate.
Definitely.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, we good.
Training wise, what sort of stuff now? Maybe talk about what was causing elbow and shoulder pain before,
Yeah.
and then maybe talk about what sort of stuff you're doing now with your training.
Yeah. So I think one of the biggest things with my training beforehand, I was reading a lot of like alpinism books and trying to be like a stronger rock climber. So I was doing a lot of pike push-ups, parallettes. I was doing a lot of pull-ups with like 20-kilo weights around my waist. Really pulling up. Was trying to get a lot of strength, but then at the end of the day, it wasn't really strong at all. It's just I was able to maybe move the weight, but then when I tried to climb or use that into something practical, injured straight away. Like not even a hard climb. Like I'll do just a move and bang, like my
Mm,
elbow will go and I have to sit down and then try to give it a break. And I'm like, I can't climb anymore. I literally can't make a fist, you know? And then my mates will be like, oh, you're right. Be like, yeah, just injured again. Standard,
yeah.
standard. But where we started with the program, it was really cool because I told you that I wanted to work up to a muscle up. So we broke it down. You're like, all right, well, false script. Do you know what a false script is? I'm like, no. And like,
Hmm.
okay, we've got to start from there. So we worked on false script, and then my false script got a lot better, and then false script holds,
Hmm.
and then false script holds for longer, and
Hmm.
then we started to do the dips on the rings. And I remember when I first showed you the dips, it was just like, whoa, all over the shop. And then
Yeah.
when I tried to do top position on the rings as well with my elbow straight, I just couldn't do it. And I'm like, are you sure? Are you sure my elbow is meant to be straight? You're like, yeah. I was like, I can't do it.
Yeah. Do you want to
Can't do it.
explain that a little bit more? Because that was actually pretty interesting, but also it gave you a good return once we kind of dialed that technique in. So maybe
Yeah.
explain that to people as well who are listening.
Yeah, definitely. So top position is when you have the rings down to your sides, probably just a little bit below hip height. And
Hmm.
then what you do is you just you engage the scat and then you pick yourself up with the elbows straight and you're hanging there. Beforehand, what I was doing is I had the elbows like kind of bent outwards, facing like horizontal,
Hmm.
and then was just getting painful over time. I'm just like, this can't be right. And then you kept saying, hey man, you gotta like straighten your elbows. And then when I said to you, I can't do it, and you're like, all right, cool. Well, let's not do top position from now. Just make sure your feet are on the ground and then just straighten there. And then slowly, slowly, you can kind of maybe put one foot up, both feet up when you're ready. But we got to do more elbow rehab and then
Hmm.
just keep doing top position on with your feet on the ground. So just practicing that position.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like a lot of, especially if it's a static hold in gymnastic strength training, things like an L sit, top position as well. If your elbows aren't completely locked out, then all of the force will actually go into the elbow joint. So if there's like a little micro bend, which is very common just because we're not used to fully locking out the elbows a lot of the times. So that was happening to Matt, and he obviously had an elbow history as well. So it was compromising his elbows. Then when he started getting rid of the micro bend, the difficult thing as well is sometimes you think that you're locking out, but there's still a little micro bend. And that's where kind of the video feedback can be very helpful for this stuff as well, because a lot of times in our head, what is actually happening in our head is not what is actually happening. Um, so yeah, that was really good to see that. And then of course your ability to hold things longer without pain just kind of disappeared, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Definitely. It felt really empowering. Now I can do like a top position, just clean, and then move up to an L sit. It's just feels so empowering. And even like a false grip hold, I can kind of pull myself up to my chest, hold that like no problems at all, and then slowly back down. It just
Mm.
feels really good. Feels really
Yeah.
good to do that pain free.
And yeah, for people who don't know like what a false grip hold is or a false grip L sit, these put extreme amounts of pressure on your elbows in particular. So if you have an elbow history, injury history, and you're now able to do this, it's massive feedback to your body that you're rehabbed, and that's the cool thing about what Matt's done is he's gone from being, most things causing pain, especially with like, more challenging upper body movements like chin ups and dips and that kind of stuff, to now mastering them and owning them completely without any pain, which is really cool. And to maybe talk about your muscle up progress, you're pretty close now, man. Yeah.
Yeah, we're pretty close. We're pretty close. So I think the missing link I have now is just coming up and then transitioning to forward up to the tip and pushing
Yeah.
upwards. But the downwards motion, we had a session on the balcony here, and you're like, hey, why don't you like make this micro adjustment when you're at the top or when you're on the way down, which was bringing the rings into your chest and feel like you're like scraping the skin off your chest. And
Mm-hmm.
that was like one of the best advices because after that, I can just nail that down position all the way down, eccentric, nice and slow, and then almost on the way back up. But we have another session soon to dial that in as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's basically, he's very close. He can do a super strict eccentric, so lowering phase of a muscle up. And I'm, I think you'll probably unlock it in that session we're doing next session. And the
Okay,
thing is, it
perfect.
doesn't matter, like, because you're enjoying the journey. I think that's the big thing as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just loving your training. Just before we go into maybe who you'd recommend the program to, maybe talk as well about the last kind of 3 months. We've really dialed things up for you as well. So do you want to talk about
Yeah,
the
sure.
the training, because you seem to be really enjoying the programming over the last few months?
Yeah, man. So I guess 3 months ago I just spoke to Connor. I was like, hey man, like I think I'm ready to rock and roll now. Like I'm not injured anymore. Let's start things in. Let's make it a bit harder. And I feel like I was training maybe with the same intensity as I was before, like 2 years ago when I was injured, that just feeling like primed by lifting heavy stuff, but now doing it injury free and being able to like on the fifth day, like fit in like a pretty intense bouldering session in and maybe even just two bouldering sessions on the weekend, but one being less intense than the other. But coming back to that, coming back home like injury free is just been life changing for me. It almost got to a point I was like, maybe like this is my destiny. Maybe I need surgery. But yeah, a little bit of persistence and just proper rehab, man.
Yeah, dude.
Just
That's yeah,
rehab, proper rehab.
yeah. I always think like my it's changing now with our generation because there's, PT is a thing, with our parents' generation, you just go to the doctor. And I remember it's probably almost 10 years ago now, my father went to the local doctor in Ireland, and he had issues with his ankle. And the doctor was like, you're going to need ankle surgery. Like, you're just going to have to get that done. And then I met him I think I was in Asia, like traveling at that point, and I came back and I met him and I went through just some calf raises with him, and he was like, "Jesus, this has fixed my ankle pain." And you
Oh,
just
wow.
think about the amount of people out there who are going, like, of course, there's very important reasons for doctors for certain things, but there's a lot of people being referred to surgery that if they just did some strength work and some proper rehab, they would probably not need anything other than just getting
Agreed.
stronger. And I think that's the most important thing to look at when you think about injuries is like injuries are a sign of weakness. And when you look at it through that lens, then you realize like, oh, I just need to get stronger. I don't need to cut my limb or whatever to fix it, you know. So yeah, I'm glad you said that. I didn't realize that you were thinking about it was that serious as well, but I'm glad you shared
Yeah,
that.
yeah. In my mind, I'm just like, either this is my destiny or I need surgery. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right, mate. So who would you recommend the program for?
I recommend the program for anyone who's like pretty serious to become injury free, or just to be able to do daily life without having pain and just being pain free. Like you don't really need to be a training as intense as I was or anyone else is. If you really just want to be pain free and you just want to take your kids for a walk or the dog for a run, and then you can't do that because of pain, like this is for you,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. And I think that that's the thing. Like you're training the same intensity as you were when you were always getting hurt, but now you're fine and you'll be training even harder than you've ever trained in your
Yeah,
life pretty soon and
yeah,
pulling up really well. And I think that's the important kind of message for people is like I spent most of my 20s, some of my early 30s, I'm 34 now, basically with chronic injuries. And Matt has been on a similar journey. So it's not if you're feeling that you're broken or you can't fix this stuff or you need to just get surgery because it's never going to be right. That's just not the case. You just need a proper path to follow and probably do less than you think you need to at the start. And then you'll find in 6, 12, 24 months down the line, you'll be doing more than you've ever done in your life. And it'll feel okay. And you'll feel that you can repeat it. And that's the biggest thing is that I think you're the same, Matt. Like you want to be training when you're 80. You don't want to be, two reconstructed shoulders in your late 30s. And then that's the end of your career,
yeah,
So
exactly.
that's great, mate. I really appreciate you talking about your story. Like I was saying to you before we went live, like there's going to be a lot of people out there who will listen and they'll resonate with this big time. So it's good to put it out there.
Yeah.
And do you have anything else you want to add? Any other?
No, that's it. I mean, if anyone like wants to know more, just reach out. I can tell you more about my story. But yeah, don't hesitate,
Great, mate.
and
Okay.
don't be skeptical.
Yeah, great stuff, mate. Okay, again, thanks for taking time out of your evening, my man. Okay.
No worries, man. See you later.
Bye.